I'm not going to say any details except for I knew a paramedic. And this one paramedic did a shit ton of drugs. Okay. And then after meeting this paramedic, I found an article or a news thingy or whatever saying how it's become a problem in the medical field of everyone doing drugs. I was like, no, 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 no. I was a CNA. I'm almost positive the only thing most of those people did there was weed. Okay. Almost positive. Maybe mushrooms, but I was almost positive. This is that ignorant young child, like, thought process, brain shit, you know. And then I met a doctor, and he also did the shit to the drugs. And then I was like, wow, does everyone in the medical field just survive off drugs? Is that why they can work like they do? Where, like, they're always working? And then that made me think about COVID and how the medical staff was like, this is too intense, this is too much, we're like, we can't. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, that was people hopped up on drugs being like, bro, we are dying. We can't take any more drugs to survive, to keep doing this. Like, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. It makes me wonder. It makes me wonder what were the professions of the people who are living on the street doing drugs now. Because it makes me wonder if they all come from either military and medical backgrounds of some sort with, like, childhood trauma. That's what I'm imagining. That's what I would say. Like, if you took, you went out and you asked every person who was experiencing homelessness, what was your most professional career, or longest professional career, or highest professional career? I bet they would talk about being in the medical field, military, security, something like that for sure. Yeah, could you, like, fucking imagine, like, working? I can't. I can. So I'm gonna put it in perspective for you. As a CNA, when I was 16 to 18, which is when I had this job, I had it longer than that, but that younger side. I think I actually had the job till I was like 20, 21. Anyways, um, I would work, I would be scheduled for 13-hour shifts. They're supposed to be 12, but you have to come in 30 minutes beforehand and leave 30 minutes afterhand because you need to give, um, what is, I can't remember, but you essentially need to update the next, like, shift change on everything that's happened since you had been there. And the way this pretty much works is then you leave and you come back, and then they tell you what happened while you were gone. And so it's like you're always being informed about what's happening, you know what's going on, everything all the time. It's like you're almost always there. But let's say someone decides not to show up for shift change, right? And here's how it works. You have your floor. I have a section of 15 doors. Inside each door is two people. So I have 30 people I'm looking after, okay, on my floor. I can't just fucking leave. If no one shows up to relieve me, I can't leave. I can't. It would be considered abandonment because if I left, they could die. So, it's considered abandonment for any medical person to leave their job if no one comes to replace them. It's illegal. You're not supposed to do it. You can go to jail. But also, they don't want you. You could go to jail if you make a mistake because you're tired from overworking. But whatever. It's always their fault, right? Um. Anyway, so if no one shows up, you stay until someone does. So I got very much used to working as a medical person, preparing yourself for the 13 hours, but not planning anything for 16 hours, maybe 20 to be safe, if you know you have really shitty coworkers, right? And I did. So I just never planned anything for the day after work because like I always assumed I was going to be working 16 to 20 hours that day. And sometimes I would and sometimes I wouldn't. I would be super ecstatic when I didn't have to. But no matter what, typically I always stayed like later than the 30 minutes for sure because someone was always late. Um, so being the youngest, right? All the other adults are, I have kids. Like, I'm like, oh, that's so great. Yeah, let's just take away my childhood. Thank you. Yes, go parent. Thank you. Thank you for leaving me here. Anyways, so yeah, I just and that was as a kid, you know. That I was a teenager. I was a young adult. So I can't imagine as someone who went through that what doctors go through. Right? Because you're literally a fucking doctor. If you're the only fucking doctor somewhere and no doctor shows up and they can't get anyone to come in, you don't. I'm assuming you don't fucking get to leave. I'm assuming that it's like if they're making CNAs do that, which is the bottom of the medical field totem pole. It's literally you are the dirt in the like if you're a CNA, you are nobody to all the rest of the people in the medical field. You are ignorant as fuck, and you should shut the fuck up and just do what you're told the way they tell you to do it. Exactly the way they tell you to do it. Um, because essentially, you're supposed to just be like a glorified listener and worker for the medical industry. Like, that's all it is. You have like no control, no experience. Like, you will see a lot of stuff happen, but you're not like technically allowed to put your hands on anybody. Like, there's even appropriate ways for you to touch people while picking them up and helping them. If you don't do it that way and you bruise a bitch, if you get sued, you get sued. That's how it works. Like, you bruised a bitch, someone can claim abuse. Like, better be careful. Better be careful. Um, most everyone has terrible coworkers. I don't know. I've worked in plenty of places where I had like pretty decent coworkers. I think it depends on what you think terrible coworkers are, and for me, it's not really about social stuff. It's more because like I'll handle your bullshit, whatever hierarchy stuff. Been doing my whole life. It's whatever at this point. But it's when like people physically can't work the job that they said they would do and could do. That's when I'm like upset. I'm like, you said you were gonna have this done. You said you were gonna have it done at this time. I did this accordingly to that, and now we are behind or stuck because you didn't fucking do it. Like, don't then tell me I should do it this way, but I'm probably going to be behind. Cool, bro. Thank you. I will plan accordingly. Right? Like, don't be a don't no. Especially as a CNA, if I'm like I'm gonna do these rooms, you do those rooms, we'll meet up in the at halfway, and then I do my rooms, and you're like halfway done with your rooms, girl. You think I'm gonna be sitting around waiting for you to finish? Ew! I'm not a fucking asshole. Like, that's disgusting. Who does that? I think we should shame if we I feel like if we are going to be a shaming community, I don't think we're going to get rid of it, truthfully. It just kind of seems like people are really holding on to like shaming. They really love it. I don't know why. But if we're going to hold on to that, I feel like we should shame people who do nasty things like that, and not people for their looks or how they act, because most people can't control that. You know what I mean? If you have Tourette's and you're yelling, you can't control that shit. But people will shame people for having fucking Tourette's. So, yeah, that job isn't fun. Yeah, no, right. It's, and it can be extremely rewarding. Being in the medical field is probably the most rewarding job you could ever have. I never had such a sense of need. I had never had such a sense of community. I had never had a sense of providing and caring. I'm like, I was doing something for the world. I had never had such a sense of that except for within that job. And I thought I had lost it, but I think the truth is like I wanted to do more, right? I was doing that, and like who I am as a person just wanted to do more. I wanted to care and help more, but I didn't know how to. And I think to be able to do that, I had to stop caring so much so I could work on myself and care about myself so that I could care more. So I think it was the right like road that I went down for this. Because that's what I want out of life is to help people. Um, and probably because I never felt like I got help. And I also don't want to do it like how everyone has it, where they like, we have this help, and we wait for those people to come to us. Like, I'm sorry, anyone who needs help is not going to find help because they're going to be yelling right where they're at for help. I mean, even people who need to call the police, right? Typically, someone, not the person that's in help, calls the police, right? So, like, that's why. That's why I'm just like, why do we have all these things to help people? But, like, you have to go to it. Like, if you are drowning, the lifeguard runs to you, right? It's not, oh, I'm starving, so I have to go find food. Like, if you were starving, we literally live in a world with Uber Eats. Why the fuck is there not a way for free food to get to people? That doesn't make any sense to me. And it sometimes happens, right? Like there's people who like drive around with their cars, they have boxes of food and they kind of just come near like a camp and they'll just hand out food. Yeah, that happens, but that's not how organizations are set up to help people who are experiencing homelessness or hunger, right? Like they're like, you have to come to us, come figure it out, come make. Oh, and then on top of that, when you come to us, you best be coming to us correct. You best be coming to us correct. You better make sure you have this and that and that and that. And what? Like what? We want to help you, but we want to help you in our own way, the way we want to help you, and not the way you need or want at all. Just the way we think is correct because we're right and you're wrong because you need help. Like, going back to the lifeguard thing, if you're drowning, the lifeguard comes to you, right? But once the lifeguard is to you, the lifeguard starts speaking to you. I don't know if you guys know this, but when people are drowning, the reason why it's so hard to save a drowning person is because they're no longer thinking. They're just flailing their arms and screaming. They're not doing anything else. Like the thought process is not happening. So, as a lifeguard, you are taught ways, which I don't know them, how to communicate to somebody who's drowning so that they don't fucking drown you too. Because if you don't know this, most people who are drowning don't get saved if there's not a lifeguard around because it is so fucking dangerous for somebody else to try and save a drowning person. It is so likely that both people will die that cops are told not to jump in after a drowning person because they would die too. It is for sure. Like that is how like not educated cops are in saving drowning civilians that they are told not to. They're like, it's not, don't, you will die. Like, you're supposed to like use like some kind of like floating device to save them, you know? And lifeguards have that, right? But they like have a way to communicate, to try and get your attention. They have like words that they use and phrases that they use to like get you to listen and pay attention. Um, so I think those are things you'd have to know. You know? Where was I taking that back to? Something. Oh, help, right? For help, it's the same thing. I feel like if you hear someone needing help, you go to them. Once you get to them, not here's the fucking help. It's okay. This is like you want help, so this is what we're going to do. I'm gonna need you to like work with me here. Like, it's time. Like, all right, we're starving, so we need to get immediate food. What kind of immediate food do we need? Like, what are you eating? Like, da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like, I just think there's a better way than just like show up and hope that the food works for you and you fucking eat it because you're starving. So crazy. I feel like third world problems in a first world community should have first world answers, not third world answers. And I don't know why we're failing as a country to not answer these problems with a first world thought process. Why are we trying to cover them up so much and not actually fix them? I just don't understand. My best answer is that we're not actually a first world country, that we're a third world country disguised as a first world country. And the only reason I say that is because I've heard plenty of people say that they don't think, based on what um, they believe a third world country is, that the US is a first world country. So I'm not actually requirements to be considered a third world country. A country is generally considered a third world country if it exhibits characteristics like high poverty rates, the US, significant economic instability. Well, I guess people would say we don't have that, but I feel like some people could argue that we do have instability. Lack of basic infrastructure, low levels of industrial development. See, here's the thing, we have these things, they're just not everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, some of our cities have, but no, like more than just basic infrastructures, but we have plenty of towns and cities and areas where we do. Same with like low levels of industrial development, right? Um, so I would have to look into like what if our percentage is more than 50% on those. High mortality rates, which we do have, a limited access to healthcare and education, and I would also say that is true. That is true. And I don't think people would say that is true here, but I say that it's limited access because you would have to give up your finances to have free healthcare, right? You would have to give up stability to have free healthcare, and outside of that, like, I guess it is access, but it's like it's not reasonable access, right? Like, a lot of people don't choose healthcare because they would rather choose to buy food and medicine. It's cheaper. Callie, I think I took too much of a supplement. Why do you say that? Often stemming from a history of colonial rule, which we have, and underdeveloped economies, essentially signifying a low standard of living for a large portion of its population. Okay, so we'd have to decide if the U.S. has a significantly low standard of living for the majority of the population, and then we'd probably be considered a third world country. Economical indicators: low per capita income, high unemployment, reliance on primary industries like agriculture, and limited access to technology. High social indicators are high infant mortality rates, low literacy rates, poor sanitation, inadequate access to clean water. So I would say we have like the startings of some of these, right? Like, we have high unemployment. I don't know what we primarily rely on for I don't know like what everyone's mostly doing for work, but I'm sure it's not just agriculture, so it's not that. Um, and I don't think we have a low per capita income, and but we might. I'd have to look into that one's a maybe, but we definitely have high unemployment. So I feel like it's a high maybe for the low. So it's like half and half for the economic. Social indicators, I don't think we have a high infant mortality rate. Um, I think we do have a low literacy levels. Poor sanitation is it's dependent on how you perceive it because I think we do because we like let people wear shoes inside and shit like that, but it's different, you know. It's the way the population like right if you go to Japan and you see outside there's not going to be trash on the ground. You see here we have litter everywhere. I think that's gross and disgusting. So I think that's poor sanitation, but that might in other countries be like really great compared to what they are experiencing. So I can't quite say. Inadequate access to clean water, and again, that just depends on where you are. Clean water in Hawaii, in Michigan, in California, that they have large populations. I'm sure there's more places that I don't know about that don't, like it's harder for people to get clean water. So I think it just depends. We have like parts of these. So I think are we moving out of a third world country or are we moving into third world country? That's the question, right? Political instability, frequent government changes, corruption, and conflict. Oh, we have that. So we have all of one and parts of two. So we're either moving into being a third world country or we're moving out of being a third world country. I'm not really sure. We'll have to look into like numbers and stuff, but important consideration. Outdated term. Third world is considered outdated and somewhat problematic as it can be seen as a generic generalization and can be offensive to someone. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Okay. Official classification. The United Nations uses the term least developed countries (LDCs) to identify nations that meet specific criteria based on income, human development, and economic vulnerability. Religious variations. While the term third world is often associated with countries in Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia, there can be significant differences within these religions. Yeah, I don't understand why like a larger country that's been around, why they don't perceive that as a possibility of being a third world country. And I'm guessing I guess like what they're probably saying is like I'm comparing the US to the rest of the US, but they're probably comparing the US to the rest of the countries, right? So I guess we are not a third world country because our poverty rates, death rates, and other like things like that are higher comparatively to other countries. But also, don't we have more people? So wouldn't they be? I think that's why you have to compare like bigger countries like the U.S. comparatively to the inside of them, and not to like the rest of the world when it comes to this because they're just so huge. You know, you're comparing America and all the people here to like a country in Africa.